highly recommend watching part 1, but if you really don't feel like it, then here's a quick recap. When I first spawned in the world, I went ahead and collected some tools, including a beginner bow that I used to defeat the first boss. Once the first boss was defeated, I moved to the dark forest and made a little shack that I would be living in. I used this little shack to collect some tin and copper around the area so that I could create a bronze axe. Once I had the bronze axe and killed a few Joes to get some troll armor, I made myself a fine wood bow. I then wanted to build, so I spent some time looking for where I wanted to build my base at. Once I found the spot, it was time to go fight the Elder. So I went ahead and 1v1 the Elder, defeating him and taking home a swamp key, which we used to go to the swamp and get a little bit of iron to make a stone cutter, which we used to build. I then created this badass wall, which is where we're at now. So welcome to 100 days in Valheim. Now that we had this awesome looking wall, I wanted to take the next step, aka I wanted to build the main house, which of course was going to be a longhouse, which according to Google was this, which is too long to read, but it is interesting. So it was decided I wanted to build a longhouses, but longhouses are very big. So I went ahead and gathered some stone and some wood so that I could go ahead and make the basic structure. I started out the build by using the 2-meter beams across the floor, explaining where I would place everything in the build. Then I use these stone floorings to go ahead and place across the floor to give it a smooth feature. After that, I finished what I was going to use for the build, a basic skeleton structure that we would be using to follow as a guide of how I wanted to build this Viking longhouse. At this point, Joe and his friends decided to throw me a surprise party, which I was not too excited about because he destroyed my entrance wall. I then went out there and gave Joe and his pals a couple high fives and they left. Then I had to fix up my entrance, which took some time, but it's okay. I then got straight back to building and started working on the entrance. I used 2 gigantic wooden doors for the entrance and designed the entire building with wood. Of course, I did try some stone, but it just looked kind of weird in my opinion. I also used a couple techniques, including for the front entrance window, which I used iron bars for, and the side windows, which I used long core wooden beams and wooden gates for the window barring. But I did forget one thing, and that was layering. So I went ahead and popped out the building a bit more, and it added a lot of spice to it. As for the interior, I made a stone and wood entrance staircase that went up to the 2nd floor. I also made a very detailed forge area room, which I ended up liking very much, and a unfinished crafting area, as well as a nice little bar, which still needs some work, and the king bedroom with all my chests. In my opinion, the longhouse ended up looking pretty good. Let me know what you think in the description below. Now that we finished the longhouse, it was time to get back to the swamp. We needed to make some iron armor and clear this dungeon. So that's what I did. I cleared the dungeon, although I might have died a few times. But either way, we were able to finish the dungeon and create ourselves a iron mace and an iron shield. If you don't know, an iron mace does more damage to the 3rd boss. Now you're probably wondering why I'm here, naked on a raft in the middle of the ocean. Who even uses rafts anymore? Well, it all started by meeting this homeless man named Pickleballs, who lived outside my base. I adopted him, of course, being the good man I am, and we went on search with a carved boat looking for a swamp dungeon. So we finally found one all the way across the sea, which of course we got destroyed at and did not place a portal and was very underprepared. So we had to go back naked on a raft with some materials to build a portal on both sides and make another carved boat. With this now done, we got back to the dungeon and started mining some more iron. Let's just say this dungeon took a lot of patience, dying, waiting, cheesing, and running away. But after all that time, we were able to get all of its juices, aka the iron, which we took back to our boats and sailed intensely back to our home. Yeah, there was a massive storm, but thankfully we got out. Once we got home, with my portion of the iron, I created an iron chest plate and an iron axe. The iron axe was actually on accident, but it's fine. At this point, Pickle logged off and it was time for me to get back to building. So the first thing I wanted to work on was the gate, which I used 2-meter beams to go all the way down, and then I used the wooden cross, the 26-degree one, to place on top of that. On the edges where I wanted to end, I went ahead and used the core wooden short beam. My idea for this build was to have 4 corners. I wanted one area to be smithing and maybe portals, one area to be a beehive area. I then wanted a farm area and a little house for our homeless man. plan. First thing I did was set up the farm. So I went ahead and leveled up the land and cultivated the area so that we could farm there. After this, I wanted to start making the shack. I started off with a little bit of a square area and then added some layering on top of that. And then for the roof, I just did a normal roof, but then surrounded it with 1 meter and 2 meter beams. I also used a couple of odd blocks to make them look like they're poking out, kind of like a medieval house, but it actually ended up looking really good in my opinion. Inside, I just put a bed, some chests, and a little fake table. Overall, I think the little medieval shack ended up looking pretty good. Once I was done with the shack, I went ahead and added 2 meter and 1 meter beams all around the farm to give it a little pizzazz. I then wanted to start farming, so I went ahead and got my carrot seeds, placed them down, and started cropping some carrots. In the meantime, while we waited, I went ahead and went to the swamp to go look for a turnip seed plant. It took a while, but I finally found one and I grabbed it, took it back to the base, and started cropping it. For now, the carrots were done, and this unlocked a bunch of new foods. This including deer stew, carrot soup, minced meat sauce, and in the future, many more. I actually didn't know too much about the food in Valheim, so this is actually really cool. Great job, Valheim. Since we're already waiting for the turnip seeds to finish, I decided to go make a potion. So I made some poison potions and some medium healing potions and put them into the fermenter so that we could get them ready for the third boss. And since it was going to take 3 days, it should finish about the same time as the turnips. While waiting for those two, I decided to start working on the smelting area. So for the flooring, I used 2x2 stones and I put them all around the area in the corner. For the entrance, I used 3 stone stairs to go up into the smelting area, and then on the sides, I put 2x1 stone bricks. After moving the smelter and the coal furnace up onto the floor, I decided to add the gate on top of the smelting area as well to give it a little bit of design. As for the entrance, I wanted to spice it up and have 2 little gate entrances, which would look pretty cool. So I tested out a couple different things until I finally got something that I liked. At least, I sorta like it. And then I copied it onto the other side, which was close enough, we'll say. I then added some portals, gates, and a few other touch-ups to make the build come to life. Once this was all done, in my opinion, it was looking pretty freaking snazzy. I was liking the build and I was liking how it looked. It definitely was feeling at home. So there was just one last thing that we had to do before the boss fight tomorrow. I wanted to go ahead and go to a couple other swamp dungeons, clear them, get some iron, and finish my iron set. And even grab some iron for good old pickleballs. So that's exactly what I did. I spent some time sailing, dying again, and then finally clearing enough dungeons to get enough iron to finish my set. At this point, it was time to fight the boss. Although we ran into a problem because the footage got corrupted. So I didn't want you guys to miss out on the action, so I went ahead and fought the boss a second time by myself. So I went back through the portal, went with my best gear, ate all my food, and then I summoned him. During this fight, I actually died multiple times, and it was very slow and took quite a long time. So I'm just going to show you the very end of the fight because it was quite long, I'm not gonna lie. Although we did die multiple times and again at the end, I was able to get the wishbone, which we can now acquire silver, or at least find it. So after I got my stuff, I went straight back to my house and went straight up to the mountain biome, which if you remember, I chose an area with all 4 biomes, which was perfect for me. I then went traveling through this gigantic freezing mountain biome, which had all new types of creatures, including wolves, the famous rapper Drake, and many more. Although we were there for a quick moment because we were just trying to get some silver so that we could make a cape. But thankfully, while I was mining some silver, some wolves came and started fighting me, which I was able to get a wolf head from. Once I had the wolf head and some silver, I went back to the base and crafted our wolf cape, which now made us immune to the cold. And more importantly, it looked super freaking badass. I mean, just look at it. It's our first long cape and it just looks awesome. I freaking love it, to be honest, man. And with the rest of our silver, I went ahead and created the best bow in the game, the Dragger bow. For this combination, I used silver, this slime stuff, some ancient wood, and it gave us this badass bow. And on top of that, it glows. So I felt pretty freaking good if I say so myself. During this adventure, we completed many things. We made multiple shacks throughout the area, and we created our awesome keep with having our shack, our farming area, our smelting area, and of course we can't forget the beehives. With inside we had the smithing area, the crafting area, the bar, and our bedroom. This has been 100 days in Valheim. If you're still watching, thank you for staying here for the journey. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys very soon. Take care. Peace.